If you have a 5.3-liter engine sitting in your driveway right now and it has 100,000 miles on it, stop what you are doing and watch this entire video before you drive that truck another mile. I am not being dramatic. I have been a mechanic for over 2 decades, and I have watched people ignore one specific repair on the 5.3 until it turned into a $4,000 to $6,000 engine rebuild that destroyed them financially. The fix itself costs between $800 and $1,500. The consequence of skipping it is a bill that most people have to finance. This is everything you need to know. Let me set the scene for you first, because context matters here. The 5.3-liter LS-based V8 is one of the greatest engines General Motors ever produced. I mean that without any exaggeration. In its earlier forms, from 1999 through roughly 2007, it was a nearly bulletproof unit. Simple design, iron block on most variants, proven architecture that mechanics understood inside and out. Owners were routinely seeing 250,000 and 300,000 miles on these engines with nothing more than oil changes and the occasional sensor. Then General Motors started chasing fuel economy numbers to satisfy federal mandates, and everything changed. Starting around 2007 and becoming widespread by 2010, General Motors introduced active fuel management into the 5.3. You might know it by the letters AFM. The marketing pitch was elegant. Your truck runs on all 8 cylinders when you need the power and drops to 4 cylinders when you are cruising on the highway to save fuel. Real-world improvement was between 1 and 2 miles per gallon. The trade-off, which General Motors absolutely knew about and chose not to tell you, was that this system would begin destroying your engine before 100,000 miles in a percentage of owners that is far too high for any manufacturer to consider unacceptable. Here is what actually happens inside the engine when AFM, active fuel management, is engaged. The system uses special lifters, hydraulic components that can collapse on command to deactivate 4 of your 8 cylinders. These lifters live in an oil pressure environment that depends entirely on clean, properly viscous oil to function correctly. When the oil gets slightly dirty, when it thickens in cold weather, when the pressure fluctuates even a small amount, those AFM lifters start to fail. And when they fail, they do not just quietly stop working. They collapse, they disintegrate, and they send metal fragments directly into your engine oiling system. Fragments that travel to every bearing surface, every rotating component, everything that depends on clean oil to survive. I had a customer last spring, a guy in his mid-40s, who bought a 2014 Silverado with the 5.3-liter at 96,000 miles. He thought he was getting a deal at $18,500. The truck drove fine at the purchase. No lights, no noise, nothing obvious. He brought it to me for a pre-purchase inspection, and I told him exactly what I am telling you right now. These trucks need specific preventive maintenance at the 100,000-mile mark. And if it had not been done, he needed to factor that into the price or walk. He went back to the dealer, negotiated $1,200 off based on my recommendation, used that money to do the repair immediately after purchase, and that truck now has 147,000 miles on it and runs perfectly. The guy who sold it to him probably had no idea what was coming and got lucky. My customer got protected because he knew what to ask for. So what is the repair I'm talking about? There are actually 2 components to this, and you need to understand both, because skipping either one is how people end up with engine damage anyway, even after spending money. The first is the AFM, active fuel management lifter replacement. Your 5.3-liter has 16 lifters. 8 of them are standard hydraulic lifters. The other 8 are the AFM collapsible units that create this whole problem. What most competent shops will do at this mileage is replace all 16 lifters with non-AFM standard lifters, eliminating the failure-prone collapsible units entirely. At the same time, they will install what is called a DOD delete kit, displacement on demand delete kit. The kit includes a new camshaft ground without the AFM lobes, new valve springs, new push rods matched to the new cam profile, and a valley cover that eliminates the AFM pressure channels. The whole job on a Silverado or Sierra done properly at an independent shop runs between $1,200 and $2,200 depending on your region and what additional components need attention while the engine is opened up. That sounds like money until you compare it to what happens when you skip it. The second component is equally important and most people completely overlook it. When you do an AFM active fuel management delete, you also need to address the oil consumption issue that often accompanies these engines. A significant number of 5.3-liter AFM engines and the percentage that GM never publicly acknowledged with honesty develop active oil consumption because of the way the piston rings were designed in this generation. The rings were made thinner and lower tension to reduce internal friction and improve fuel economy. That sounds fine until the rings begin to seat improperly or wear prematurely, and suddenly your engine is burning a quart of oil every 1,500 to 2,000 miles. If you are checking your oil regularly and noticing it dropping between changes, that is the signature. If you are not checking your oil and you own one of these engines, start today. An engine that is a quart low on oil when the AFM system is active is an engine that is accelerating its own destruction in real time. Fixing the ring issue at the same time as the AFM delete means replacing the rings with a higher tension set during the same teardown when the engine is already partially disassembled. This adds cost to the job, but far less than it would cost to do it separately after the fact. A good shop will check your compression and do a leak down test before the job. If your numbers are within spec, you can skip the ring work and monitor. If you are seeing low compression on certain cylinders or your leak down numbers show ring seal issues, do it all in the same operation and do not go back twice. Now I want to talk about the other repair that goes hand in hand with this entire service and that mechanics frequently find at 100,000-mile intervals on these trucks. The active fuel management system is controlled by a dedicated solenoid pack and a specific passage in the valley of the engine. When these solenoids fail electrically, you typically see a check engine light and codes in the P06 range. But there is a failure mode that is more insidious where the solenoids stick mechanically and the lifters get stuck in a collapsed state even when the engine is demanding full cylinder operation. This produces a misfire, a rough idle, and sometimes a lifter tick that owners confuse with valve lash issues or a collapsed lifter already in failure mode. By the time you are doing the AFM delete, every one of those solenoids should be coming out of the engine and new ones going in. The cost is minimal compared to the rest of the job, and leaving old solenoids in an engine you just spent $1,500 on is the kind of decision that brings customers back to my shop with a very frustrated look on their face 6 months later. I want to give you the real numbers on what this costs because I have seen YouTube videos and forum posts throw around figures that do not reflect what people actually pay in the real world. Parts alone for a complete AFM delete kit from a reputable supplier like Mass Motorsports, Texas Speed, or Trick Flow run between $400 and $900 depending on what is included. Labor on a Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Yukon, or Suburban with the 5.3-liter engine runs between 6 and 10 hours at shop rate depending on what else needs attention. If your shop charges $120 an hour, you're looking at $720 to $1,200 in labor plus the parts. Full job cost at an independent shop in most markets falls between $1,100 and $2,100. I have seen dealers quote $3,500 to $4,500 for the same work using OEM parts and their labor rate. That premium exists to fund the building you parked in front of, not because dealer technicians are doing something different mechanically. There is a software step that comes after the parts work, and a lot of shops either forget this or do not know how to handle it. After you do an AFM delete, the engine control module still has AFM logic running in its programming. If you leave the tune stock, the computer will try to engage the AFM system that no longer exists, throw codes, and potentially cause the engine to run in a reduced power mode or a continuous fault state. The fix is an engine control module tune that disables AFM logic entirely in the software. Some shops handle this with HP tuners or EFI Live solutions. A quality tune also recalibrates fueling and timing slightly for the new camshaft if you went that route, and the result is usually a small but noticeable improvement in throttle response. Cost for a basic AFM disable tune from a reputable tuner runs $200 to $400. Do not let anyone talk you into skipping this step to save money, because you will just end up paying for it in diagnostic fees when the truck starts throwing codes. I had another customer, a woman who works in real estate, and drove a 2016 Suburban with the 5.3-liter engine for showing properties. She came in at 103,000 miles with an intermittent tick and a code for a cylinder 4 misfire that came and went. Her previous shop had replaced spark plugs and coils and sent her home twice with a clean bill of health, and the misfire still returning. When I did a full inspection, I found one collapsed AFM lifter on cylinder 4 that had not yet sent metal through the engine because she had caught it early. We did a complete AFM delete that week for $1,680, including the tune. If she had waited another 10,000 miles, that partially collapsed lifter would have gone catastrophic, sent debris through the oiling system, and she would have been looking at a long block replacement starting at $4,500 installed. She saved over $3,000 by catching it when she did, and by coming to a shop that actually knew what they were looking at. Here is how you know if your 5.3-liter engine is showing early warning signs right now. First, listen for a tick that appears at idle and that goes away slightly at higher RPM. This is different from the normal cold start tick all engines make for a few seconds. An AFM lifter tick tends to persist at idle and has a rhythmic quality tied to engine speed. Second, check your oil consumption. If you are adding oil between changes on any significant schedule, that is a flag worth investigating before it becomes a crisis. Third, pull your engine codes even if no check engine light is on. Use a professional scan tool that reads pending codes, not just active codes. It will sometimes show AFM-related faults that have not yet reached the threshold to illuminate the warning light. Fourth, if you bought this truck used and have no service history, assume the AFM work has not been done. The majority of 5.3-liter trucks I see in my shop with over 100,000 miles have never had this addressed because the previous owner either did not know about it, did not have the money, or was already planning to sell. The 5.3-liter engine with a proper AFM delete done correctly will go 300,000 miles. AFM stands for Active Fuel Management. I am not speculating about that. I have customers running converted 5.3-liter engines with north of 280,000 miles right now, and the only repairs they have needed beyond consumables have been a water pump and an oxygen sensor. The engine itself, the rotating assembly, the heads, the valvetrain, all of it runs perfectly because the failure mode was eliminated before it could progress. That is the whole point of doing this at 100,000 miles instead of waiting for symptoms. By the time you have symptoms, you are already in damage control mode. Do it preventively and your 5.3-liter becomes the engine it always should have been before AFM was introduced. If you are shopping for a used truck with a 5.3-liter engine right now, here is your final checklist. Ask specifically whether an AFM delete has been performed. and ask for documentation. A shop invoice with parts listed tells you everything. Check the oil on the dipstick before you drive it. Color, level, and consistency all tell a story. Have a mechanic scan the computer for AFM fault codes before you commit. And if none of this work has been done on a truck with 100,000 miles or more, factor a $1,500 line item into your negotiation, because that work is coming and you should not be the one absorbing the full purchase price and the repair. The 5.3-liter engine without AFM is one of the best truck engines ever built. The 5.3-liter engine with AFM left intact past 100,000 miles is a financial liability that a lot of owners discover at the worst possible time. You now know the difference. Fix it early or budget for the consequences later. It is never a question of if with these engines. It is only a question of when. If this video saved you money or helped you understand what is under the hood of your truck, hit subscribe. I put out honest mechanical content every week that dealerships would prefer you never see. Drop a comment below telling me what year and mileage your 5.3-liter engine is at right now. I read all of them. Like the video if it helped, and I will see you in the next one. Take care of your truck, and it will take care of you.